January 2014 Access Solutions. So DB1 asks you to open staff table and rename the field called staff landline to staff contact number. Insert a new field called staff leaving date. Make it a date time field. And change the data type of the staff job title to lookup wizard. And then you're entering the fields options: gardener, carpenter, labour, design specialist and secretary. So I will type the values I want. Gardener, carpenter, labour, design specialist, secretary, and that's it. Then your screenshot. You need to make sure that you're showing the examiner the evidence you put in a lookup wizard. So you just change the tab to the tab lookup, and that's your screenshot. DB2. To select the most appropriate, just close that table down. So make sure it's good practice to take a new page for each question, and make sure that you have cropped the screenshot to show the listener what they need to see to give you full marks. So just going back into the staff table, it asks you to select the most appropriate field for primary key. Well, clearly staff ID, it's a bit of a giveaway that this is the primary key field, and if you just go into the table, you'll see that each row has a different value for each record, which allows it to be a primary key. So then it says close the staff table and create a one-to-many relationship between the staff and the job table. So if I go into relationship window, and you'll see the staff table is the only table that's not connected to the other tables. Whenever you're creating a relationship between two tables, you need to identify which is the primary key and which is the foreign key. Well, you know the primary key already, it's the staff ID, and if you want to link it to the job table, then you'll see you'll need that field in the job table, the staff field, a staff ID field in the job table. So that becomes the foreign key field. When you're creating a simple relationship, just an association between two tables, you can just simply drag and drop between the two, and you make sure you check all the boxes. Enforcing referential integrity ensures that any staff IDs you put in the job table must also appear in the staff table. Cascade update related fields means that if you update any staff members in this table, those details are updated in the job table. If any cascade delete related records, if you delete any staff members from the staff table, it will also delete their references in the job table. So that's your screenshot. DB3. So DB3 is a validation rule, and it has to, for the postcode field in the house table, it must begin with the letters BT. So if you go to postcode, and you do this using an input mask, and if you click on the three dots, there is a pre-existing input mask for postcode, but at the moment, well, I have already edited this particular postcode so that whenever you click on the field, it puts in BT automatically. So what you need to make sure is that you set up the postcode as shown. So if you initially, it will be something like, so a postcode follows the format letter, letter, number, 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 letter, letter. So if you put in LL, that represents letters. 00 forces the person to put in a number. Now the second number in a postcode is optional, because you could have a postcode BT6 as opposed to BT16. So if it's BT6, then there won't be a second digit after the two letters. So you put in the number 9. So 9 means it accepts a number without it being compulsory. Put a space in, and then it's number, compulsory number, letter, letter. So that's just a standard postcode, but I want a postcode that begins with BT, so I put it in speech marks, and then I put 0 in to say that I want a number, and then 9 to say that a number is optional, and then I want a number and 2 letters, and that should be your postcode, and you can just try it. So let's put in BT 23 6 UJ, and then accepts it, and that's fine. And not only do you put in then your input mask, it then says that the validation rule, if they contravene that input mask rule, the postcode must be for a region in Northern Ireland. And that's it. Now you have to make sure that the person can see your full validation rule. So if you click on the 3 dots, you'll see that it appear there. Or if you go full screen, you can see your validation rule there as well. So that's for 2 marks. DB4. So DB4 is a form with subform. So your form should look like this. You'll notice that the fields in the form and subform have been adjusted so that you only see a portion of the actual field name from the table. So the 2 tables are clearly the house and customer table. So create form, and I'm going to use the wizard. So from the customer table, I need customer ID, surname, first name, contact number, and email and registration date. And from the house table, I need house ID, house number, street name, town, county, postcode, and comment. Go to next, you'll see it's a form of subform, which is what I want. And the subform is in datasheet, which is what I want. Don't worry about the name at this stage, it's fine. So now I'm just going to change the view to layout view, which allows me sort of the best of both worlds. I can edit the form and also see the layout as well at the same time. So the title is going to be customers and their houses. So I just work through the form from top to bottom, adjusting it so that you're sort of doing everything you need to do, or doing everything that you can see in the question paper. So I'm just going to put in a label at the top. You maybe have to do this in design view. So I'm going to put in tools. Now obviously in the day of your exam you will have a written version of the paper, so you'll not have to worry about splitting the screen or anything. I'm just doing that so that you can see the paper at the same time. Now what you're trying to do is just move things about. So this one here is, this title is house details. You need to put another label in up here, which is customer details. Make sure you get your spelling right. Capitalization isn't really that essential. Very rarely will the examiner penalise you in this part of the paper for getting for missing capitalization. They may penalise you for spelling mistakes, but they'll not penalise you for not capitalising something that should be capitalised. So I'm just going to adjust, put the labels in, and I'm going to change the labels for the existing field names. Now you have to pay close attention to this here. So you're taking out the first bit. If you see here, they're putting a space in contact number, but they're taking out the cust bit. And for registration date, you have to just literally change the entire label to registration date. For house details then, you just take out the first bit, house, postcode, and you might need to widen the box down a wee bit. That should be it. Change the view, so we're nearly there. The only thing you need to change here really is the size of the text boxes. Now from memory I can't remember if there was any marks for adjusting the the size of the text boxes, but because it's shown in the screenshot, I would adjust it just in case, unless you're of course you're running out of time, in which case you just speed through it. But if possible, try and make it as close to what you see in the screenshot as possible. So it then says, if you read through the rest of the question, use the form to add a new house to a customer called Rose Turner. So this, if you go back to the full screen view here, and this allows you to scroll through the main form. So you're looking for Rose Turner. There we go. And what they're asking you to do is put in a new house with the ID H119. House number is 4, and it's School Road, Belfast, Antrim, BT 36 4RR. And that would be your screenshot showing the title, the labels all changed, and then your record being entered. So I'm just going to save that. So DB5 is a query. So Susan Smith, the gardener, has not been able to locate her driving licence since 31st of December 2013. She may have left it in a garden when at work. So it's always a good practice in your exam to highlight those parts of the question where you have to provide evidence to the examiner that you have actioned what they've asked you to do. So in this question, I would be highlighting the date. I would be highlighting the tables, any of the criteria. So this, for example, this is the customer ID, the staff ID. I'd be highlighting that, and this ensures then that you maximize your chances of getting full marks. So when a query design, you're looking at the house, job, and service tables. Rearrange them so that they make a bit more sense. So you're looking for staff ID first of all, and the staff ID is STF004. You're then looking to show gardening jobs after the 31st of December. So so we're looking at the type of service. And if we just run this, you may have to run the query just to see what sort of data it's picking up. So it's gardening services. So they're looking for, there's different types of service here. There's grass cutting, weeding, planting, patio cleaning. So gardening services to me would be weeding, planting, and grass cutting. So that would be part of your criteria. So you have to be aware, if a lot of students from memory put in gardening as the criteria here, and it didn't show up any records because gardening isn't one of the responses. So you just need to be careful that you're putting in criteria that actually exists in the database, otherwise you'll not get any results. So it's weeding, grass cutting, and there's a third one as well. Weeding, grass cutting, and planting. And then we have job date, and the job date is since 31st of December. So it's at look at this line here, the houses that Susan Smith worked on gardening jobs after the 31st. So it's greater than the 31st of the 12th 2013, or you could say greater than or equal to the 1st of the 1st 2014. So you're looking for job date, house number, house street name, house county, and house postcode. And it says to sort it in descending order of job date. And I think that's it. And the only fields you're supposed to show are these fields here. So even though you have looked at staff ID, you've selected staff ID, they don't want to see the staff ID, or they don't want to see the type of service. If I run that, You see that it is producing the right records, and then there's my screenshot. Now make sure you don't have truncated fields, in other words fields where you can't see all the criteria. You just need to widen your columns so that you can see your data. Okay, that's DB5. DB6 is a report. I'm just going to save this as DB5. So DB6 is a report. Now this report, there are two ways you can do it. You can do the query first and then simply add the fields to the report, or you can do the report and then add the what's known as a calculated field into the report itself. So I'm going to show you the query way first, and to my mind I would always try and do a query for a report first that does all the selecting of records and uses all the criteria you need to use to select the records. The report is really allows you then to do things like counting or certain subtotals that you couldn't do in a query. So the query allows you to select a particular subset of records. It also allows you to do calculations like this, but it doesn't allow you to do summary totals and grouping. So if I just take a look at this here, so it's always good practice to have a look at the tables before you go into the exam, so at least you understand the context of the database beforehand. So it's grouped by type of service, and it says for each type of service calculate the days taken to complete each service by placing the following formula in the control source for a new text box. So this here is implying that you do it in the report, and I'm going to show you the query first and then show you how to do it in the report as well. So for each type of service calculate the total service charge for all services, and then it shows you a screenshot. So I'm just going to create a query, and all the fields are coming from the service table. So I need service number, request date, completion date, type of service, which is the grouping level, the service charge, which is this. Now you'll notice there's an extra column in here, days, and if we just go back up to here, that's what they're asking you to do a calculated field on. So this days isn't coming from anywhere. You'll generate that in the query or in the report, and I'm going to show you how to do it in the query initially. So if I just go to a new field, and we'll call this days, and this is a calculated field. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this formula to generate days in the query. So it's completion date minus request date. So square brackets completion date, and it must be typed in exactly as it appears in the table, otherwise Access will not understand it and will throw up a message box. So for example, if I typed in if I put a space between request and date and then tried to run the query, it would throw up an error sort of thing. It's looking you to enter the request date rather than getting it from the table above. So if I run that, you'll see that it's generating values for that. Now once I group that in the report, that will give me the values that you see here. So that's my query. It doesn't have to be, does it have to be sorted in any particular order? No, that's fine. It just has to be grouped by, it's obviously being grouped in alphabetical order, or once you group it, it will automatically put it in alphabetical order. So let's just do that. So you've got decking and grass cutting, that's fine. So if I just save this as DB6 QRY, and now I'm going to put that query into a report. So I'm going to use the report wizard. I'm going to select the query, DB6, put them in. I want to group it by type of service. Once I group it by type of service, then I can put in summary options, and I want to sum the service charge. And in the query I've already sorted it by type of service, so that's fine. Put it in landscape. You put it in landscape so that you don't have to fiddle about with widening columns and fields so you can see all the data. It's better having it too wide than too narrow. And I'm just going to change the name of it to DB6 RPT. Preview the report. Now even by putting it in landscape view, it's still getting the field, so I'm just going to widen it out a bit more, and move these fields across. Now you can actually go into layout view, and layout view is probably the best at this stage, just for getting the layout into a format that allows you to see all the data. Right, move those across here. Now you can take out that, you don't need that. You can change that here. It should read total service charge. I'm going to move that to here and move that beside it. Okay, and that's pretty much the report in a nutshell, except you have to put your title in, time to complete requests. Again, don't worry about capitalization too much. I would maybe make that, if you have time, but only if you have time, make that a wee bit bigger and to make it stand out. And that, your screenshot then, it says, it's not even a screenshot, it asks you to print out the first page. Make sure you put in your candidate number, centre number and question number. Now in the exam you did in January, you won't have, you'll have just taken screenshots. Print out your first page as indicated, and making sure that that you show the information as shown. You'll notice that there's no total service charge for grass cutting, so obviously it only prints down to what the 6th record in grass cutting. Now the other way of doing it is doing the calculation for days in the actual report itself. Now if you go to design view of the report, you'll see that because you put a grouping level in of type of service, you have a grouping level type of service header and grouping level type of service footer. Now you'll notice that the calculation for the service charge is simply a text box with a formula in it, and that formula is equal to the sum of open circle bracket, open square bracket, service charge, close square bracket, close circle bracket. So that is simply the total of all the service charges for that particular type of service. So all you'd have to do is put in, you have to make sure that you have a type of service footer in the first place. So in case you haven't got that, if you click on this here and click on more, you can make sure that you have a footer section for a grouping. If you haven't got a grouping level, you can always turn a grouping level on, and then once your grouping level's on, you can put a footer section in it, which allows you to do summary totals by the different options within the grouping level. So if I just replicate that, all I'm doing is putting in a text box. I'm going to change the label to the other way, just so you can distinguish between the two. And in my calculation, I'm just going to simply copy this formula, because that's all you're doing. You're just putting in a formula which does exactly that. And you'll see whenever I run it, it should show the same value. Now what I'm going to do here is change the properties of that to currency, and then that should be exactly the same. Now the other calculation is days, which they allude to in the report. You can put in a control source of a new text box. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to put in I'm going to put in a little calculation to do that. So I'm going to put it in here. So I'm going to put in a text box. I'm going to take out the label. I'm just going to delete the label. Oops, I deleted the whole thing. So if I just delete the label here, and in here I'm going to put in equals square bracket completion. Now just check the formula again. So it's completion date minus the request date. So completion date minus the request date. widen that out a wee bit. So that it will do exactly the same as days, only days, that actual calculation is done in the query. So I'm just going to copy this label and put it here, and I'm going to put the other way in here just so you know that it's actually generated in the report, and you should see it gives you exactly the same result. And you'll see it's showing up a wee line around that. Again, it's not really that important if the line shows up in the actual exam. You'll be pushed for time, but if you want to get rid of it, you just change the border to transparent, and that's it.